It's Danny.
It's Rocky.
And we are back with Dharma Dudes.
We're back, baby. Just when you thought it was safe to get back out there on the podcast scene, here we are. This episode we talk about, so like sometimes Danny will text me or call me and be like, I was fun, Danny, this weekend.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I was fun, Rocky, this weekend.
Yeah.
So in this episode, we talk about reconciling. That's the word of the episode for me.
Yep.
Yoga Danny, yoga Rocky with fun
Danny.
And fun. Not to say we're not fun when we teach yoga.
Extra fun.
But yeah, we get a little extra fun sometimes, especially in celebration of.
And this episode was really cool too because we got to do it in person.
It's very true. I'm literally staring deep into Danny's eyes.
We're gonna do this again.
Do what again?
It's gonna happen again. Watch.
Oh, like we're gonna try this intro again. Like we blowing it?
We're blowing this intro.
We're doing this again.
Speaking of doing things in person,
you're great. You're killing it on the segues.
I know. In this whole episode, actually.
I know.
No, but really, what are we doing? What are we doing in person, Sim Rocky?
Jerk. You know when people ask you questions that they know the answers to?
Yeah.
Well, Danny and I are going to be hopping on a plane to Mexico over New Year's.
Wait, Mexico?
Okay, that's a bit. Yeah, Danny, weren't you at rehearsal? We already did this bit.
We are going to Mexico, though, over New Year's.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Promoting the hell out of this.
So if you want to hear this in person in Mexico.
Yeah, if you want to see fun, ridiculous Danny in person for 5 days in Mexico, and also, you know, it's not really about us. Like, it's about you connecting with, like, yourself and setting intentions for the new year and developing, like, a greater sense of relationship with your own authentic self in a beautiful location with great company, with, you know...
Fun Danny and fun Rocky.
Yeah, actually skilled and experienced yoga teachers, despite how we might come across
on this podcast intro.
Yeah. Then... You're invited. You're invited to come to Todos Santos for a 5-day yoga and wellness retreat with yours truly.
Yep, we're going to be doing 2 yoga classes a day. We're going to be doing some journaling, some meditation. It's all about leaving some of the past behind and calling into the future, all of our goals for 2020. And it's also just been a really great way to connect to with not just, you know, yourself, but also a great community and yeah, I get to do this with you, which is super exciting and super fun.
I'm looking forward to it. They'll be inhaling
and exhaling.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in Mexico.
Yeah,
start practicing your Spanish now.
Ooh, muy caliente por nuevo año con Danny y Rocky los dudes de Dharma. You can sign up using the link below in the show notes. And I know Rocky and I would love to have you on our retreat to Mexico over New Year's. It's going to be a good time. I usually don't like it when Danny speaks for me, but in this case, he is correct. I would like to have you.
So join us on our retreat in Mexico. Let's get the show started.
Return of the dudes.
Return of Dharma Dudes.
Dharma dudes. Return of the dudes.
Once again.
Oh my god.
Are we going to get sued for this?
For what? For making up a song that no one's ever heard before?
That sounds kind of like another song that everyone's heard before?
I literally have no idea what you're talking about.
What is that called, though, when they go and they...
Innovation. Creative inspiration.
Do you remember when Robin Thicke got sued because he had that what was that one song where Miley Cyrus twerked on him?
I think it went Return of the Dudes. Oh my god.
And that was definitely it.
Twerking on Thick.
Yeah.
Dharma Dudes. Coming back at you with another episode of Dharma Dudes. This time we both got windscreen.
And this time we're sitting together in person.
Oh, there you are. I see you. Oh my god.
He's literally like a foot away from me.
Danny's literally right in front of me. Our mouths are literally less than a foot apart.
What's that?
It's an incredible amount of sexual tension in the room.
I feel like every episode is me just laughing.
Yeah, I don't have. I mean, I find none of this funny, so except for when I do, then I go. Every time I listen back to the recordings, I'm like, oh, so that's what I sound like.
Right. Do you? So wait, this is because this is the first time you've like recorded stuff. Do you like when you've heard it back? Have you been like, oh?
No. Every time I hear it back, I'm like, wow, my voice. I really have a voice that's perfect for radio.
Perfect for radio. For radio.
No, opposite. I'm like, I should just never talk again. How about there we go. See that? Hear that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Everyone, I'm sorry. Welcome, guys. What is this, an intro? Is this the episode? Are we doing it?
Something. It's the something. We're doing something. We're here in person, though. That's really exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
In San Francisco, the mean streets of the Mission District.
What were we doing today earlier in San Francisco?
We might have been stealing coffee mugs. And,
oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. I blocked that out really quick.
Yeah. Jenny has a lot of guilt about some of our choices this morning. We were just content machines, Danny.
We were actually taking pictures for this Dharma Dude episode.
Oh. Is that what we were doing?
That's exactly what we were doing.
I was like, who's that guy that's following us around?
With a camera?
Yeah.
You thought it was paparazzi?
Oh, I mean,
It's still not happening right.
Every time I come to San Francisco, it's just the paparazzi just never leave me alone. And I tell them, no pictures,
And they're like,
please.
wait, Rocky, but we want to take pictures.
I'm like, fine, do it. Just a couple.
Okay, again. What can you give me on the side?
I've become so famous from these Dharma Dudes podcast episodes.
I mean, same. I'm actually, I can't walk down the streets without people being like, you're Dharma?
They're like, return of the dude.
You're the guy that doesn't go to rehearsal.
Yeah, they're like, oh my God. Yeah, no, that's why I never talk in public anymore, because as soon as people hear my voice, they're like, oh, I recognize that voice from Dharma Dudes.
That's got to be rough.
Actually, I kind of love it.
I mean, same.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Welcome to Dharma Dudes.
Welcome to Dharma Dudes. Thanks for... I would say thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to thank people for? Thanks for being you.
Thanks for their continued support.
Thanks for your continued support.
Thanks for listening to our shenanigans.
Yeah. Thank you for your endurance.
Thank you for believing in us, for watching this train just crash.
Yeah. Thank you for getting on board a train that is bound. Well, I would like to say it's bound for glory, but it's potentially bound. Well, there's going to be some detours on the way to glory.
I mean, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
That used to be my MySpace, like back in 2004. My MySpace profile tag was "This train is bound for glory." Presumptuous?
So on today's episode, what are we talking?
Good segue.
Rocky, what have you been up to?
Just updating my MySpace page. Just did a whole rebrand of my MySpace recently, so that's good.
Didn't it shut down?
Yeah, MySpace was down for a couple decades, but it's back up again.
No, but really, I think it was isn't it done? I could have made that up.
If that's the case, then that's some really devastating news, because I do all of my promotion through MySpace.
All of it.
Yeah. I wonder why no one's ever at any of my events. I posted on my MySpace.
That's all that really matters.
I wish that was all that really mattered.
So, speaking of things that matter, that's a good segue. Mm-hmm. Speaking of things that matter, it's Pride Month, Rocky.
Do you believe in love after love?
It's Lerv.
Oh, sorry. Do you believe in love after love?
A little more on the Lerv.
Oh, sorry. Do you
Lerv?
I'll never get it.
No.
I don't think I'll ever get it.
That's fine. It's fine.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Okay, I have something to say on
do I need
podcast.
To sit down for that? Well, I'm seated, but do I need to sit down?
I need you to stand up and then sit back down again.
Okay,
because this is a big reveal on the Dharma Dudes podcast. Okay, I'm just going to say it.
I'm ready.
I'm gay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you for providing a safe space for me to be honest for the first time about who I really am, Danny.
Well, I feel like I have something to say as well.
Are you going to steal my thunder? I just came out on the podcast. You're going to... Okay.
I keep waiting.
Okay.
I really like doing this podcast with you.
Thank God you didn't steal my thunder.
And I'm gay.
Oh, damn it. You did two things.
That's right. I just went up to you.
You guys, the Dharma dudes are into other Dharma dudes. It's Dharma dude for dude. Yeah.
Oh, God.
So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Happy Pride.
Bye.
Bye.
So something I was talking to you about, though, on real talk.
Oh, here we go.
We were talking about this dichotomy of being a spiritual, I guess, like on a spiritual path, and living a queer lifestyle, or being identified as queer. And there's a lot that goes into a queer lifestyle and what happens in the queer community and so on and so forth, and how there's like this balance. And so I figured we could get into that today since it's Pride Month.
I feel comfortable with that.
Okay.
Let's get into it.
Now that you're out and about.
Yeah, now that the world finally knows the truth about me, let's talk about it.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about it. So I feel, here's where I'm coming at it with this, is I feel that there are these different worlds that I kind of live in. Like, for instance, there's this yoga world, right? Where it's very, it's spiritual based. It's very like, I go to my classes and do all that stuff. And there isn't a very heavy queer scene necessarily per se there. I mean, obviously we're a smaller group of people in general, but then there's this like other side, that I live in, like, for instance, my Burning Man world, right? Which is very queer focused as well, or can be queer focused for a lot of it. And then there's just my like everyday life, San Francisco, like my queer events and things that I do that. And it's almost like I'm having to not wear different hats, but there are these different sides of Danny that come out. And I almost felt like for a long time, like I couldn't do one and then the other because they were so like black and white, because they just seemed like two totally, completely different things. Like one thing was very focused on like spirituality and getting grounded down. And the other thing was very focused on like, rah, let's go out and hang out and do all the fun things and be really sassy and like all the things that go with being a queer, like there's a whole culture and a community behind it that a lot of people don't know about. So I often feel or felt for a long time, I think it's changed a little bit now, but like I had to balance like living in these two worlds. It's rough.
It's hard out there for a queer.
Yeah, it's hard. No, but it really like it's hard being a queer man and in general, or and then also balancing that out with being, my yogic self and my, spiritually inclined self. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but for a long time I did kind of see like, well, I couldn't do one without the other. I had to focus on one and not the other. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense. And I did my teacher training when I was 20 and I came out when I was 19. So there was so many things I needed to experience throughout my 20s and still, that I felt conflicted about after I kind of adopted this persona of a yogi and then a yoga teacher.
Right.
And I think the pressure of that kind of early on of feeling like, as you said, like that these worlds might be mutually exclusive, or that if I am making the choice to engage in mindfulness practices or practices that enhance my well-being, well then that means that if I go out and party or go out and explore my sexual identity and my role within my I guess queer community, and which involves a lot of trial and error. I think that's the thing. Like, our practices certainly involve trial and error, but there's a very distinct goal often, or at least there can be if that's kind of the model that you're operating under.
Right.
And I think, to be queer, I mean, the word itself implies that you're weird or that you're different or that you're not ascribing to the norms. And I think we do that to ourselves as yogis as well, and say like there are kind of the norms of what what someone interested in yoga is going to engage in. The thing that I hear, I don't say that I hear it a lot, but when I do hear it, it kind of makes me like uncomfortable, is when people will see me out and doing something, fill in the blank. This episode might turn into like true confessions of a yogi.
Sure.
But they'll see me doing fill in the blank thing. And they'll say like, oh, but I thought you were a yogi.
Yeah.
Like I thought you were a yoga teacher. Like you do that and you do yoga. And it's, on the one hand, I like to be transparent about all the things that I do, because I feel like there's the opportunity to educate people that, you know, what you think of as what you think a yoga person, a yogi is or isn't, is perhaps a little bit reductive. And we're all more than that. And you too could be a yogi and continue engaging in the things that you like to engage in. It doesn't mean that if you decide you want to, you know, adopt this practice, you have to stop doing everything, you know. And there's kind of these different yogic paths. There's the ascetic path, where it's like, it seems to be more characterized by everything you turn away from, everything you shun, everything you renounce.
Right.
And then there's like the more tantric paths, and the things that you turn towards and the things you engage in, and being able to find the spirituality in the perhaps some of the more indulgent aspects of life. But I think so much of figuring out who we are as gay men involves turning away from expectations and social norms and kind of the pressures of identity and trying on a lot of different hats, which can be really destabilizing. So to reconcile that with also being in front of people as a teacher and as a guide, is an interesting paradox.
I was just thinking, you know, and this is something that we talked about a little bit earlier today, just as we were having lunch, but having that vocabulary and also that understanding too of like, you know, classical yogi versus tantra yogi for a very, I mean, up until recently, I didn't realize I was more of a tantra yogi in the sense that I was like, these are the things that I have in life and these are the things that I want to engage in. And I think that by engaging in these things, or by, like you said, indulging in these things, they would then help facilitate the growth to my path.
Yeah.
They would then help me get there. Like identifying that and knowing, I guess, putting language to the thing that you were doing is really important.
Yeah. And, you know, I think there's, at least for me, like I had very, again, somewhat reductive views of what yoga was and what a yogi is and looks like and what their practices are. And the more that I've learned over the years, the more I've embraced the fact that there are so many different ways that yoga can be interpreted, and there's so many different practices and paths that can fall under the umbrella of yoga, that even within kind of differing philosophies or viewpoints, there are really contrasting approaches to the practice. So I think for someone to say, you know, even for example, like I posted something on Instagram a while ago of like my neighbor made me breakfast and she made me eggs and bacon, and I posted a picture of it because I figured people would really be interested in
your eggs and bacon.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
right.
And
I liked it like 10 times.
Thank you. I was like, God, Danny, I mean,
really is into bacon.
Really into bacon.
Yeah.
But you know, someone commented something like, "How do you reconcile, you know, being eating meat with the concept of ahimsa?" And I didn't take it as someone was challenging me, but there were so many assumptions in that statement. First of all, that I am a student of the Yoga Sutras, that because I'm a Hatha Yoga teacher, that I follow the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which really don't inform that much about Hatha Yoga, other than, you know, there's the people that kind of brought us Hatha Yoga were also, I guess, followers of the sutras. And I didn't respond because, of course, like, how do you say all that in a text? But those assumptions are sort of rampant, I think, within our community of what it looks like to invest in this path and what it doesn't look like. And I guess I've learned enough over the years, I've been exposed to enough that on the one hand, I can kind of justify any of the choices that I make in my life as being a part of my yogic journey, I suppose, or not. But it's like, depends on how you define what yoga is. You know, is yoga all wellness practices? Is yoga all things you do to like cleanse your body? Or is yoga all things you do to detach from physical reality, to become equanimous with source? Is yoga is yoga just the intention to engage skillfully in whatever you're doing? And I can really skillfully go out and party.
Yeah,
engage
totally.
fully in that process.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah, I think something that you said earlier that really, again, it's putting language and maybe framing it too, but you know, I can go out and I have gone out and been like, oh, you're the yoga teacher, right? Or you're Danny. It's in San Francisco specifically. You know, I've been I've been out in clubs with my t-shirt off. Woo!
You hussy.
I know.
Did you have another t-shirt on under it?
No.
Danny.
I know.
That's not very yogic of you.
Well, someone actually came up to me and they're like, aren't you the yoga teacher guy? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, cool. With your shirt off, huh? And I was like, I'm not allowed to do that. Like, I kind of almost felt like, I don't know. Anyway, I've had these situations where, and I've just been in different scenarios. Again, same thing. Like, I'll just use that. Fill in the blank, right? This is confessions of yoga teachers right now. But
whatever you think it is we're talking about, that's probably
the thing. Yeah.
We'll post a link in the show notes down below of all the drugs Danny and I have done. Let's just be real.
Yeah, totally. Seriously.
Kombucha.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mushroom tea.
Yeah. Cordyceps. And ketamine.
Yeah. Totally. For depression.
Yeah.
No, it's just it's almost like you said, people have this assumption that just because I am a yoga teacher, I have to live a certain lifestyle. And I even thought for a while, like, there was shame behind me smoking pot. Like, you know, I'm, you know, like, known and out there for having like this like crazy story of, you know, recovery and so on and so forth. And I stopped drinking and, you know, there was my suicide. But I almost felt guilty by doing that, like by even engaging in something like that when, you know, obviously there was more that went into it. It's something that I used instead of, you know, using Ambien to go to sleep nightly and right. Things like that. But I almost guilted myself because I failed to realize that I was still engaging in my yoga practices, being mindful in the things that I do, being intentional in the things that I do, and not just going out to have like this fucked up party boy experience, which I've done plenty of times. And even then, you kind of going back to what I'm saying, like when I see these people out and about, the assumption is that because I'm a yoga teacher, I shouldn't be doing these things, or that I need to be setting this and this example, or whatever, you know, whatever it is. And kind of like what I say at the beginning of like my trainings, or like when I work with somebody, is like, just so you know, I'm going to probably disappoint you a couple times. I have my own shit going on. I'm living in my own little world, and I have my own set of problems. Like, yeah. I'm trying to have this humanistic experience of being a, you know, yoga teacher by, you know, work trait, career trait, passion, whatever it is that you want to call it. And also living my life as a queer man and engaging in that experience. And I think that it took me a while to skillfully get to the place where I'm comfortable with both and that there's no shame in either. I wore a crop top the other day and it said something funny, like, or it says...
Did you have a t-shirt on underneath it?
I did not have a t-shirt on. I know, I was showing my belly.
Oh, God. Okay.
But it was funny, you know, it was a funny crop top. It looked like the Netflix, you know, thing, and it said pizza and anal. And I thought it was really funny, so I wore this crop top out, and someone saw it.
These are a few of my favorite things.
Someone saw it, and they're like, that was classy, you know, like, but in a sarcastic way. I think they didn't love that I had a crop top on. One.
Were you wearing it to teach?
Definitely not wearing it to teach.
Okay.
I don't even teach with my shirt off. I teach with like you know, there's a level of like.
You teach in a hazmat suit, don't you?
I don't.
Like a full.
I totally. It's actually a beekeeper suit.
Oh. Buzz.
I don't want that
for you.
I don't want that bad energy to sting me, you know.
Oh, it's a metaphor.
Yeah, totally, exactly. But I want to be able to. I mean, part of like my brand or my thing is that I'm real as fuck, you know, like I'm happy to tell it like it is when it is without anything holding back. And like this exhale the bullshit thing I truly believe in every single moment. And part of it is exploring my yoga journey in these other aspects of my life, you know, in these other shades of Danny and the other things that yes, people see me in the world as Danny the yoga teacher, but that's not all of me. That's not just the one thing that I do is teach yoga and that's it. Like there's way more to me than that.
Pizza and anal.
Pizza and anal.
Yeah. Yoga, pizza and anal.
That's it.
It occurred to me a while ago, or at least I started asking the question to myself, as my definition of what yoga is has evolved over the years. Like if I'm a yoga teacher, what does that mean? What am I teaching? Mm-hmm. I'm teaching yoga. Okay, well, what is yoga? Oh, it's these technologies and poses and practices. Okay, so I teach people these tools, mm-hmm. Or mm-hmm. I facilitate, well-being through offering these techniques and practices to people. But so then what is it that to what end? Like, mm-hmm. why am I doing that? Mm-hmm. Is it, yes, of course I want to be a positive influence on the planet. I want to help empower people. So I kind of, as I distill things down to really what it is I want to catalyze on the planet, and in myself, first and foremost, it would be personal empowerment, which means like my ability to create the life that I wish to create, mm-hmm. To recognize that I have the resources within me to do that, mm-hmm. And authenticity. I think like if you really want to create the life that you want to create, you have to first be clear on what that is, and you have to give yourself permission to want what you want. And that's a big part of the process of coming out, is saying, to yourself and to the world, this is what I want. And it's the thing that so many people would say is wrong, is dirty, is inappropriate, is unnatural, and yet the thing that is for so many people the most unnatural thing in the world, to us feels like the most natural. It took me like a long time to realize that I was gay, because I assumed that I would somehow feel different. And my friends were mostly straight guys in high school, and a lot of them are still my friends to this day, and they were artists and creative, and I never felt different from them.
Right.
I didn't feel like I was able to, as we went through puberty and all these things, like I was able to kind of feel the everyone's sexual energy kind of coming online, mm-hmm. and mine didn't feel any different than anybody's. It was directed, towards seemingly everybody. I was just like a horny teen, but it was
you,
yeah. and you. That feels nice. But it didn't feel like I was different, and I felt different for a lot of reasons. I felt different because I was, the only mixed race person not the only, but one of the few people of color in my town. I was really tall. Like I felt like I stood out for a lot of reasons, but it wasn't because of my sexuality. So anyway, I guess my point is, my sexuality never felt unnatural to me. So when people tried to imply that it somehow was, or when I was trying to, again, reconcile what felt very natural to me with this idea of like, a gay man is someone that's unusual or queer or weird or unnatural, I was like, well, that doesn't feel like me.
Right.
So, I think the process of wanting to help people connect with their own authenticity, a lot of that is dismantling shame around your authentic desire.
Right.
And what is a more potent and strong desire than our desire for intimacy and sex,
right.
and human connection. So in my mind, in that way, what I teach as a yoga instructor is no different than what I model as an authentic human living my life, which is why, in recent years, and it always feels a little risky because I recognize, like, when I look at, say, my Instagram or, many of my social media things, I'm like, okay, so 1 minute I'm teaching some functional movement drill. The next minute I'm like doing a handstand. The next minute I'm like out partying with my friends, like you at Burning Man, like in a crop top and being ridiculous. The next minute I'm like, some underwear model. The next minute, and I'm like, oh, are all these things sort of contradictory to each other? And then I recognize, well, all these things are authentic to who I am. I am all those things. Like I'm I'm a crop top. I'm a sexual being. I'm a gay man. I'm spiritually minded. I'm woke AF. I'm I'm a friend, a partner, a lover. Like I'm well, I'm not a partner at the moment, but I have been.
Right.
Just another podcast. Yeah. Just triggered myself. Didn't know that was possible. So, why boundary or hide any of those aspects of myself? In fact, if I want to teach, if I want to practice what I preach and I'm hiding huge aspects of who I am, then that seems to be more of a conflict.
And at the same time, you're not going to walk into like teaching a workshop being like, hey, like, know your audience.
I would never say, hey, walking into a workshop.
Right. Just like, and you like knowing your audience, right, is important, but also being authentic to who you really are. Like, you're not going to walk into teaching a workshop with your crop top that says pizza and anal.
No, I don't.
Unless it's a workshop on pizza and anal.
Which is a great segue. So later this year, Danny and I will be teaming up.
This is actually just the setup for this workshop that we have coming up.
Yeah, details on my MySpace. Yeah, but like that's not. I think when I go to practice yoga, there is something about the practices that are unifying in that, like, there's room for all of us to be who we are, but I think there's also room for us, at least for me within the practice, to transcend those aspects of my personhood and be this energetic embodied soul. My preferences in terms of food and sex and community, it's not that I transcend those things or I become bigger than those things. It's just though that's not a part of what connects me to my yoga practices. Right. It's not that I leave them at the door. It's just like the yoga practice is more. There's sort of a mixing of all of it that kind of comes together. That I think that.
And there's also this reminder that we have to take that stuff into this world. And we have to try to make those practices work into this world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if we not lived in San Francisco or LA, whatever it is, and didn't have all these worldly things and it might be easier to live that lifestyle and fully go by every single page in the book and blah, 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 blah. But we have to adapt that to where we're at now in life. Yeah,
for sure. I think that's true of all of the yogic practices, from asana to pranayama to more lifestyle stuff. Like, we live in a different time than when a lot of these practices were sort of brought to fruition, and everything has to continue to evolve and adapt. But I do feel like what I credit yoga for, what I keep coming back to yoga for, is this idea, and it's not that this is, I'm not speaking on behalf of all of yoga, but this idea of sort of radical autonomy, that I am self-sufficient to my own needs, that everything that I require, I contain within myself. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that to the sense that, like, I'm not going to, like, close the door and never come out because I can just, self-sustain on my own prana for the rest of my life. Like, I do require human connection and interaction and intimacy and stimulation, and like, I want to be out in the world, but when I find myself stepping out into the world to get things that I feel are deficient in my life, or that I feel, usually the more emotional things, like if I feel lonely, so I step out into the world to try to find company. Right. That's where the slope becomes a little slippery for me. Whereas I can step on a yoga mat and practice being good company for myself, and practice strengthening my relationship with myself. Right. And sometimes that's messy, sometimes that's volatile, sometimes it's beautiful, but there's enough there for me to engage in a dynamic relationship with self, that then when I step out into the world, I'm looking forward to connecting with others. I'm bringing myself out, to connect, but there's not as much of a thirst or a sense of lack that's informing how I engage with my community. And I guess for me, that's how I sort of, feel like I keep using the word reconcile, but that's how I use yoga to kind of fill my cup, so that then when I step out into community, I don't get lost. Because I think as a young person, it was really easy to get really, a lot of the things that we engage in, fill in the blanks. Like those are all things that people can really easily get lost in.
Right.
And that's kind of always the temperature that I'm trying to take on like the choices that I'm making is, am I doing these from a place of lack or deficit or need, in which case there's the possibility of getting lost, or, am I able to engage in these things mindfully from a place of overflow, from a place of like celebration,
right?
A place of pride in who I am.
Yeah.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. I can't wait for our workshop. It's hard.
It'll be barbecue chicken, and I'm not talking about the pizza. Figure out what that means.
I'm mind boggled.
Hawaiian. Sausage lovers.
What happened to Rocky and Danny? Oh, their careers tanked after that podcast episode. I always find it like, and obviously this is, I always preface a lot of things by saying like, this is my own experience, and because that's really the only thing I can speak from. But it did take a while to get comfortable, to be able to engage in both sides of my life and to share with my yoga friends, like, like, oh yeah, I went out with my, with my other friends, with my queer community, and, here's fun pictures of what we did, and, blah, 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 blah. This is what happens at I've been at Burning Man, and, for those of you that haven't gone to Burning Man, there's a lot of nudity there. There can be a lot of nudity there. There's a lot of everything. I get fill in the blank. There's a lot of literally everything there, and have bumped into like yoga students like fully nude or, wanting to engage in like sexual acts or whatever, and been like, you know what I'm saying? Because I've it's that like, well, wait a minute, is that Burning Man Danny, or do I engage in yoga Danny, or do you know what I'm saying? Like it's
I relate to all that. I think there's always the conversation of ethics for sure, and like
hashtag ethics,
and I think that, not that conversation is adjacent to this one, but I think it's okay to be your authentic self and not necessarily compartmentalize. But yeah, when you're engaging with people that have a student-teacher dynamic with you, I don't think you have to be yoga Danny, but you can still, engage ethically in that. Yeah,
there's that's just like one small thing, but like, I've been on apps, like on gay dating apps, and have had people, send me messages and things like that. And then later to find out they had taken my yoga class or, whatever. And then you get into chatty time with them or whatever it is, and then you're just
is
like,
that what you call it?
Chatty time. Yeah. There you go. I'm having chatty time. Leave me alone.
You guys, it's been weeks since I had chatty time. I am bursting at the seams.
So I'm plugging for the workshop, and Rocky's plugging for his.
Oh yeah. Follow me on Grindr. There's a link in the show notes.
You know what I mean? That like,
yeah,
it's
well, and I think you can do your best to be, to live with integrity and to teach ethically and to adopt that seat with responsibility. But at the same time, like, we are teaching drop-in public classes. It's not like, if I'm mentoring someone one-on-one, that's or someone signed up for a teacher training, that's a different kind of relationship for me than if someone drops in once to one of my public classes, randomly. I can't necessarily manage all of that and be expected to remember every single person that's ever been a student and make sure I never engage in them, in a way that transgresses that boundary. So, to a certain extent, that's just being realistic. And I do think, with the teacher student thing, a lot of what we have to be careful about is power dynamics.
Yeah.
So if someone has been a student of yours in the past and you don't know it, and you go up and you flirt with them, you're not taking advantage of a power dynamic because you don't know.
Right.
If anything, that might be there, but it's not like if someone is a regular student of yours.
Yeah.
And I don't even have a strong, stance about like teachers should never date anybody that's ever come to this class. There's always like the exceptions to those things. But
I think it's just like the the
exposure.
Yeah, you know, because what we do is very public, and
well, and for me, I think actually I feel more vulnerable as a yoga teacher than I feel as a gay man, because as a, you know, what we do as yoga teachers is so open-hearted, and you know, to really connect with community, you have to kind of bare your soul a little bit, and to be relatable to the pain, the suffering, the joy, the success, the struggle of the human experience, and leverage that into your teaching. You literally have to show up and like both be strong and hold space, but also like open up your heart and kind of turn yourself inside out for work, you know. So like the paradox there is like, to be really vulnerable for work, you also have to establish really healthy boundaries. And I think the boundary for me is actually, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but when I do step out as Rocky, not the yoga teacher, but as like the man, whether that's a queer man or just
the legend,
the legend, the oracle, I don't know, the dude,
the Dharma dude.
We'll edit that out. It's fine. Yeah. I guess the boundary that I set for myself is I'm not a yoga teacher now. Like that's not who I am. I'm setting the boundary that like, I'm giving myself permission to be a human being right now. And I guess I not happen to believe I when I think about it, there is also, you can't really ever divorce yourself from teaching. Once people have eyes on you as a leader in the community in whatever way, everything that you do is demonstrating something.
Right.
And I'm inclined to think that there is good modeling that we offer when we show that, yes, you can be this and this.
Right.
You can go to class, you can meditate and eat these foods and go to class and do these things, and you can go out on the weekend and have a fun time and like be a little reckless.
Right.
You know, what I say to people sometimes that give me shit about things that they've seen me do that seem to be in conflict with wellness practices is, I'm like, isn't it better that I engage in all of these, you know, quote unquote yogic practices and do these other things than that I just do these other things? Like, is it not for nothing that I do all that stuff as well?
And also, why are you so worried about what I'm doing versus you checking into what you're doing?
Yeah, I think part of what they're saying too is like, how many people have said to you at one point or another, "Oh, so
many. I don't even know what you're going to say yet, but so many people tell me all the time."
Must get exhausting.
Yeah.
Like,
hold on, someone's saying something to me.
Do you want me to wait?
Yeah. Okay.
What they're probably saying to you right now is, like, I could never do yoga because I'm not blah blah blah.
Right.
Usually it's flexible, but like, I just couldn't sit still, or I'm such a mess, or I'm so like, I there's all these prerequisites of who you have to be and what you have to be willing to do in order to practice yoga that I can't do. And I think it's actually quite liberating to show people like, yeah, you can be kind of a hot mess and you can still do yoga. You might not be able to touch your toes. You can still do yoga. You might have like gone out to some circuit party last weekend and done a whole bunch of drugs, like speaking for a friend, and you can still do yoga. Like, yoga doesn't say you can't, I'm not for you if you do these other things. Right. It's for everybody. Right. Now, I think the more,
or look a certain way, or be of a certain race, or be of a certain, you know, gender, whatever it is.
And that's why, you know, like, it's great to like get the clothes and get the beads and do all, like, kind of, you know, put on the costume. And there are kind of inside out I think a lot of yoga is inside out practices, but there are the outside in aspects of that too. Why does every studio have a retail store? And there's like, you know, there are the things you can adorn yourself with that kind of
remind you too.
Totems, so to speak. But ultimately, to me, that's not the yoga.
Yeah.
You know, I have had incredibly potent, I'll just say, like, yogic moments of being incredibly present and connected and tuned into my body and to my mind and my heart and others out on the dance floor somewhere, you know, without any mantra playing in the background, or without, like, you know, any blocks or straps around me. Like,
right. Yeah.
And I'm inclined to think like
that's one of the most places where I'm connected is like when I'm out on a dance floor.
Yeah, that's why it compels me.
Yeah.
It's sort of, there's different ways to define yoga, but if yoga is like the yoga of fill in the blank, then anything to a certain extent, this makes it difficult when it comes to like branding and marketing and figuring out what it is we do. But like, yeah, there's the yoga of stretching and the yoga of conditioning, which is a lot of what we do on a mat. There's the yoga of singing and the yoga of dancing and the yoga of lovemaking and the yoga of anything, depending on how you choose to engage with it.
Right.
And not to say that my whole world is like me engaging mindfully in different things. Like I have moments where I'm on and moments where I'm off. But it's infinitely more interesting to me to figure out how I can thread the tools that yoga has equipped me with into more diverse areas of my life than just boundary it at a studio or
because we are more than just a yoga teacher or a yoga practitioner or whatever. You are everything else in every other aspect of your life as well. You're a partner, you're a friend, lack thereof a partner.
Oh boy, here we go. All right, it's fine. I'm fine. You're fine. This is fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Burning.
Welcome to Dharma Dudes.
1 second. Can I just give a lighter? I can just burn this room down. I mean, it's fine.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, we are all these other aspects, and we happen to be queer men as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me yesterday, actually, when I was talking about, it was Pride in LA last weekend, and I won't say that my sleep schedule was fully on fleek by the things
Fleek. The children are saying these days.
Mm-hmm, yes, there'll be a glossary in the show notes.
There's a lot of show notes.
I'm just trying to follow your lead.
Oh, okay.
There's a link somewhere for something.
Yeah.
And my friend was like, just so you know, well, what do you say? It was something along the lines of like, there's nothing that you can do that's bad. Like anybody that's going to, or inappropriate, like implying that this is inappropriate or that's inappropriate, or it's better to do yoga, asana every single day or twice a week, or going out is reckless and staying in is healthy, or getting 9 hours of sleep is ideal. Like, everything, there's nuance to everything, and everything is relative to what else is going on in your life. We were having this conversation earlier today that like for someone that's been going out and partying since they were like 18 years old,
16
or 16 years old, well, I guess to say the context within which you're doing these things also makes a big difference. Right. Like I'm at a place in my life where I feel very confident in who I am. I feel very secure in who I am. I feel, not that I'm just like bursting at the seams with it, but more so than I have felt probably ever before.
That's just your muscles bursting through the seams.
My biceps. my bis and tries. So stepping out into the social scene, as it were, feels very different now under that context than it did as a young man who was kind of, who had a lot of experiences to go through to figure out who he was. So to say, going out and staying up late is reckless. I guess I just push back against some of those assumptions. Even this whole conversation is sort of we're talking with a little bit of like timidness about like things that we do, as if there are going to be people that will deem some of our choices inappropriate or controversial or scandalous or this and that. And it's like, well, who is anybody to say what is appropriate and what isn't? Right.
And I mean, we can go so many places with that. I feel like I just thought about it right now. But I want to, since it is Pride Month and we're, kind of a lot of our conversation has been about being queer men and yoga teachers or yogis, and totally a bite off like RuPaul. But what would you say to younger Rocky, young boy Rocky as a queer man growing into this world?
Oh gosh. Like, you started to say that, and I started to feel myself cry.
I can see. Yeah.
Like, I never. I would just say you're beautiful and you're fucking awesome. And some people are going to see that. And it's the people that are also beautiful and awesome will probably see it. And some people aren't. And it's not that they're not beautiful or awesome, but they haven't fully recognized that they are either. And that's okay. Like, bless them. Bless the ones that seem to reject you. Bless the ones that seem to approve of you. But most importantly, bless yourself because you're awesome. And I think it's taken me a long time to learn that. It's taken a lot of conflicting feedback from the world around me, people that have approved of me, people that have disapproved of me, people that have wanted me, people that have rejected me. And it was such a, if you're letting yourself be validated by that, it's a real tumultuous journey. So I think, I don't lament the journey I've been on to get to where I am now, and I'm not finished, but when I look back at myself as a child, as a young man, as a teen, regardless of how awkward I might have felt at the time, I see myself as being really fucking awesome. And I wish I'd known that a little bit more. But I know now.
I love it. That's good.
What about you?
Oh, I have to do it too, huh? Man, I would say eat a lot more meat. eat a lot more protein. You scrawny, straight squiggly boy. Like, you just look like a stick figure. No, I would say, I don't want to steal your thunder again, but I would say the same thing. Just, it's going to be hard and it's going to be rough, and there are going to be people who don't approve of you and who deem you less than, and who are going to tell you that you are not enough and that you shouldn't be here and that you don't belong, and you'll get through it, and to love yourself through it, and to know that you are going to come out of it so much stronger because of it, and you're going to be able to hold space for those who are going through it or who are confused, and you will be out there one day sharing that voice, telling people that they are amazing and that they are awesome and that they are enough, and you're going to be a fucking fabulous man one day. That's what I would say.
Yes. Hunty. That'll be in the show notes too. Don't worry, guys.
I think that's it, yeah?
I think we did it.
I think we
Happy
did it.
Pride, you guys. Listen, gay, straight, bi, whatever. Be proud of who you are.
And keep practicing yoga.
Or not.
Yeah.
No, definitely keep practicing yoga, but also go out and live your best life, guys. No shame.
Yeah. No, what is it? No shade. No tea, no shade.
No tea, no shade. Return of the dudes.
Once again.
Return of the dudes.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Return of... It's Pride Month. No tea, no shade.
Until the next Dharma Dude session, this is
Rocky
and Danny saying peace out.
Peace out, y'all.
Girl.
Peace out.
Girl.